Welcome to Slayer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, why you can't take the best of, the greatest of lists seriously. Rolling Stone magazine did a list of the 250 greatest guitarists of all time, and this was like months ago, and people are still like complaining and talking about this. Rick Beato, who has a super huge YouTube channel where he talks music related things, interviews artists, he made a video on this. I mean, so many people complaining about this. I just saw somebody bring it up in my Facebook feed just the other day, and I thought, all right, I gotta say something about this, because you see this all the time. You see it shows up in your Facebook feed, the 25 greatest bass players of all time, the 100 greatest guitar players of all the greatest singers of all time, whatever. And the thing you have to realize with these lists is, whenever these lists come out, everybody, how come blank isn't on that list? You'll see, especially like these guitar player lists, you'll see guitars. How come insert the name of jazz fusion guitar player isn't on that list? I'll tell you why they're not on that list. Because the people that make the lists tend to not be musicians. They may be music fans, but they tend to not be musicians. Now, if you polled 10,000 guitar players to make the list, you'd get a much different list than a list you would get from Rolling Stone or Vice or some other, whatever website thing, Loudness or whatever some of these websites are. And again, most of it is because these people aren't musicians themselves. So how they're judging these players is by the music and how popular these artists are. So whenever I see these lists, like this Rolling Stone 250 or however many, 150 or whatever it was, guitar player list, all these people come out, this guy should have been on the list, just some obscure jazz fusion guy. And yeah, this guy's an amazing guitar player, but unless you're a guitar player yourself and a fan of fusion jazz, you have no idea who this guy is. So that's why someone like Kurt Cobain is going to get on these lists and rank high on these lists. The reason why is because Nirvana is massively popular, huge, and everybody knows Nirvana, and their songs are really good. Whether you like Nirvana or not, Kurt Cobain was a good songwriter. You may not like that style of music. He was a good creative songwriter. And even though he's not really a good guitar player, he had a sound and he had a sort of a style, a trademark thing. You knew it was Nirvana. You could tell the Nirvana guitar sound. Whether that was him or his producers, whatever, it doesn't matter. People recognize it. They recognize the songs. They associate these are good songs. This guy must be a good player. That's not always the case. John Lennon is not really anything special on the guitar, but he's an amazing songwriter. Neil Young isn't a great guitar player, but he's an amazing songwriter. So that's how someone like Neil Young will land up on a top 50 list or something like that, because non-musicians are relating to the songs, and they're saying, this is a great band, these are great songs, this is a popular band. That's how they land up on the list. So all these guys, I love Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin and Mahavishnu Orchestra, Frank Gambale, John Scofield. He's one of my favorite like jazz fusion guitar players. Love him. I don't know if he was on that Rolling Stones 250 list, but if he wasn't, I would totally understand why, because most people don't, unless you're into jazz, which is a very small subset of people, you're probably not going to know who John Scofield was, even though he had a little crossover with some of the jam bands and stuff like that. But you get my point. These guys, the same with the bass players. I'm a bass player, but people always get mad when Cliff Burton or Steve Harris or Geddy Lee or Les Claypool rank higher than Jaco Pastorius or Stanley Clarke. And they do that because people recognize their music before they recognize Jaco Pastorius. Out there, if you're not a bass player and you're not a fan of jazz, you probably don't know who Jaco is. You probably don't know who Stanley Clarke is. So that's why these lists are what they are. Don't take them too seriously. Who cares? Just move on. But I see people getting angry. Hey, make your own video. Make your own list. These things are more about popularity. Guitar players who had a sound, who had a band, I say this all the time, like Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck, and I probably mentioned this in the tribute video that I did to him. He was somebody that every guitar player from that era recognized what an amazing player he was, but he never quite got the recognition that he deserved because he was never in Led Zeppelin. He was never in the Who. He just never had that band that put him over the top, that put him into the public eye like Led Zeppelin. I could go to my parents and they would recognize the Led Zeppelin. They might even recognize Jimmy Page's name because Led Zeppelin is so huge, such a massive band. And it's unfortunate in a fair and just world, everybody would know who Al Di Meola is. Everyone would know Frank Gambale and Jaco Pastorius and Jeff Beck and stuff like that, and they wouldn't get fooled by these guitar players who are just in popular bands. But it's not the reality. It is what it is. That's why these polls are always these lists and everything are always so weird and off. It just depends on where it's coming from. It depends on the age of the people, the magazine that's putting it together. When you see Spin Magazine does lists and stuff, it's always skews more towards like 90s stuff because that's when that magazine was popular. Rolling Stone caters more towards a certain demographic and stuff, and that all plays into it too. So, all right, there you go. That's just my opinion on these lists. Why, whenever I see them, I never take it seriously. I never get angry. I realize that a lot of it is just personal taste, and your favorite guitar player can be your favorite guitar player for whatever reason you want it to be, just because you like that music. Hey, there's tons of great guitar players playing music I don't like, so I don't listen to it. I can recognize that they're great players, but I don't want to listen to their music. If I don't like the music, I don't care how great of a guitar player or drummer or singer you are. If I don't like the music, I'm not going to listen to it. And that's what it comes down to with a lot of these polls. All right, let me know what you guys think of all these lists and the greatest of and that and stuff like that. Let me know down below. Till we see you again. Make sure you rock hard, art free.